Story 1. Once upon a time, when we were Boy Scouts back in the day, we would often plan camping trips to explore the great outdoors. These trips had always been filled with adventure and camaraderie, and we had grown accustomed to the joys and challenges of the wilderness. However, little did we know that one particular camping trip would expose us to an entirely different kind of danger that our training had never prepared us for. It was a beautiful summer day when a group of us decided to embark on a camping expedition deep into the woods. Our shared history and friendship gave us confidence that everything would go smoothly, just as it always had. We were well versed in watching out for wild animals, poisonous plants, and venomous spiders. But little did we anticipate that we could encounter something far more sinister even in the heart of nature. Our first unsettling encounter took place in the dense forests of Florida. In early January, 3 of us booked a primitive campsite for a weekend getaway. As we arrived at the campsite, it became apparent that it wasn't as secluded as we had hoped. The site was situated right on a dirt road, a stone's throw away from a rural highway. Numerous campsites dotted the area, some empty and others occupied by fellow campers. Across the dirt road, another camper caught our attention. He was a peculiar man, camping alone out of his Subaru. As we began setting up our camp, we noticed him watching us intently. The sight of a large machete holster to his hip only added to our unease. Throughout the first day, he kept his distance, but we were acutely aware that he was observing us. Our campsite was not far from his, with only about 30 feet separating us. We resigned ourselves to the fact that he would likely eavesdrop on our conversations throughout the night. Thankfully, the first night passed without incident, and on the second day, he unexpectedly started to warm up to us. While one of our buddies and I ventured into the shrubs to gather firewood, he approached us and offered suggestions on finding better materials that weren't rotted. Despite his suspicious demeanor and nervous fidgeting, we appreciated his attempt to be helpful. However, we couldn't ignore the fact that he seemed uncomfortable around people, as if he had never quite adjusted to social interactions. As the day progressed, an unforeseen turn of events unfolded before our eyes. Cars started rolling into the campsite next to the machete-wielding man, one after another. The campsites quickly filled up with a large group of millennial city dwellers who had booked 3 adjacent sites. Unbeknownst to them, they had unwittingly encroached upon the personal space of the enigmatic hermit. We watched as the machete man's eyes burned with anger and frustration. He clearly despised the intrusion but attempted to maintain a semblance of normalcy. However, his body tensed and his gaze turned into a death glare directed at the newcomers. The tension escalated when one of their dogs, let off the leash, bounded over to the hermit's campsite, showering him with excited jumps. To our astonishment, the machete man barked back at the dog, freezing in place as if restraining himself from taking drastic action. The dog's owner rushed over and restrained their pet, averting a potentially dangerous situation. However, what followed was even more alarming. The hermit muttered under his breath, expressing his intention to shoot the dog if it ventured near him again. Surprisingly, the city dwellers seemed unfazed by his threats. They kept their dog on the leash for the rest of the evening. However, as night fell, their intrusive behavior escalated. Their incessant barking, simultaneous conversations, and constant shouting created a chaotic atmosphere that infiltrated the serenity of the woods. We huddled around our dwindling fire, unable to escape the barrage of noise and the absurdity of their conversations. In hushed tones, we found solace in mocking their out-of-touch remarks and imitating their most obnoxious member. With each exaggerated imitation, we tried to find humor in the situation, momentarily forgetting the discomfort caused by their presence. As the fire died down and the temperature plummeted, we finally decided to retreat to our hammocks for some much-needed rest. I awoke at daybreak, my body stiff from the cold. Peeking through half-closed eyes, I noticed my friend crouched near the fire pit, desperately coaxing the coals to ignite. Lacking the motivation to get up until the fire was roaring, I shut my eyes once more, intending to drift back to sleep. However, the tranquility of the morning was shattered by the sound of voices. My eyes shot open, and I realized that one of the voices belonged to the machete man. He stood over my friend, his hand casually resting on the hilt of his weapon, a familiar stance we had grown accustomed to during his solitary camping. I feigned sleep, my heart pounding in my chest, straining to catch snippets of their conversation from the safety of my hammock. The machete man's voice cut through the morning air, his tone both curious and accusing. "Which one of you is doing that dumb bass voice?" he asked. Caught off guard, my friend stammered before reluctantly admitting his guilt. A momentary silence hung in the air, and I held my breath, half expecting the man to unleash his machete in anger. However, to our immense relief, he let out an awkward laugh. "Man," he exclaimed, "you guys had me rolling in my tent last night." A wave of relief washed over my friend, and he managed a weak smile. "Yeah, that's cool, man. We thought it was pretty funny," he replied, grateful for the unexpected turn of events. The machete man leaned in, his voice lowered to a whisper as if sharing a secret. I'm serious, guys. I was this close, he said, his words tinged with a mixture of gratitude and tension. Confused, my friend inquired, close to what? The hermit's voice dropped even lower, his words laced with a hint of menace. If you guys hadn't got me laughing like that last night, I was about 10 seconds away from going over there with a 9mm and making them shut up. The weight of his words hung heavily in the air, leaving us stunned and speechless. Struggling to find a response, my friend remained silent, allowing the man to continue speaking. The hermit expressed his disdain for city dwellers infiltrating their peaceful retreat. His bitterness focused on those from Orlando. Attempting to deflect suspicion, my friend quickly interjected. No, we're not from Orlando. We're from the Gainesville area. Ah, that's not too bad, the hermit responded, his tone softening slightly. Well, anyway, I'm gonna go back and try to get them to leave. See y'all later. With those words, he turned and walked back to his campsite, leaving us in a state of disbelief. As soon as he was out of earshot, my friend turned to me, his wide eyes mirroring my own. Did you hear that? I nodded, my voice barely a whisper. Yeah, man, good thing we're leaving today, right? We exchanged a glance filled with a mix of relief and unease, realizing the potential danger we had unknowingly been exposed to. It was a chilling reminder that our assumptions about the hermit had been far from accurate. Our other friend, oblivious to the conversation that had just unfolded, emerged from his hammock, rubbing his eyes and stretching his limbs. Sensing the gravity of the situation, we filled him in, recounting the events of the early morning encounter. As the reality sank in, we unanimously agreed to cut our camping trip short, packing up our belongings and preparing to depart before 10 o'clock. We tried to brush it off as a joke, attempting to lighten the heavy atmosphere that hung over us. But deep down, the words lingered, leaving a lingering sense of unease. What if we get home, someone mused, and we see on the news that some guy shot up a whole campsite full of people from Orlando? Though said in jest, the underlying fear was palpable. Thankfully, news of such a tragic event never reached our ears, and we returned home safely. What might have transpired if we hadn't brought a sense of humor to the situation? It was a question that lingered, a reminder of the unpredictability of human encounters in the wilderness. Over the years, we would continue our camping adventures, only to find ourselves stumbling upon enigmatic individuals lurking in the deep woods. Each encounter left an indelible mark on our memories, blurring the line between curiosity and trepidation. We encountered hermits who were reclusive yet harmless, content with their solitary existence amidst nature's embrace. Others exuded an air of unpredictability, their strange behaviors and chilling stares fueling our imagination with unsettling possibilities. These encounters served as a constant reminder that the wilderness held more mysteries than we could ever fathom. Despite the occasional unnerving experiences, we remained drawn to the allure of the great outdoors, its untamed beauty and the camaraderie it fostered among us. We developed a keen sense of vigilance, always mindful of the potential encounters that awaited us beyond the familiar trails and campsites. In the end, our encounters with woodland hermits served as a haunting reminder that even amidst the beauty of nature, there exist hidden pockets of the unknown. It reinforced the importance of preparation, trust in our instincts, and the bonds of friendship that held us together during uncertain times. As we ventured into the wilderness, our hearts filled with equal parts excitement and trepidation. We embraced the enigmatic nature of the woods, ready to face whatever mysteries awaited us, be it the wonders of nature or the peculiar encounters with the reclusive inhabitants of the deep woods. Story 2. The second time I found myself unexpectedly encountering a person in the woods, the situation took a far more unsettling turn. It was during another camping trip with my two friends from before, but this time we had an additional companion, a good friend who wasn't a former Boy Scout like us. Our camp out was much more serious and adventurous this time. We embarked on a journey to South Carolina, planning to spend 4 nights in the wilderness. We had managed to secure a secluded campsite for ourselves, deep within the untamed landscape. To reach our destination, we had to drive down a dirt road for several miles until we reached a loop where we parked our cars. From there, we hiked downhill to our campsite, nestled on the upper banks of a river. The exact time of year escapes my memory, but I do recall that it was hot and dry. The river's water level was low, reaching only ankle deep in most places with occasional steep basins. The vegetation around us was diverse, and the terrain was ruggedly mountainous, creating an otherworldly atmosphere that intrigued us and heightened our sense of adventure. Equipped with fishing gear, we had plans to explore the river and engage in group fishing activities. However, as a novice angler, I found myself struggling to catch anything worthwhile, while my friends seemed to have better luck. Despite my lack of success, we were all enjoying the trip, immersing ourselves in the beauty of nature. But as the second or third day arrived, tensions began to simmer among us, and the close quarters started to wear on our patience. It was at this point that someone proposed an idea to venture across the state line to North Carolina, which was nearby, to visit a place called Sliding Rock. Although this suggestion didn't particularly excite me, the rest of the group was enthusiastic about the adventure. Here's where we made a significant mistake. In Boy Scouts, we were taught about the buddy system, a vital rule to follow whenever venturing into the wilderness. The principle emphasized the importance of never going out alone, always ensuring that at least one person accompanied you in case of any trouble. However, given that we had not encountered any real danger in the first 48 hours, we made the ill-advised decision for the three of them to go on the half-day trip while I stayed behind to watch over the campsite. I am aware that it was neither safe nor smart, especially considering my dying phone battery. However, as they left, they entrusted me with the keys to the other car in case I needed assistance. Surprisingly, the solitude I experienced during their absence turned out to be quite relaxing. I prepared a simple lunch of cheesy grits over the fire, indulged in some reading, and later washed the pot in the river near our campsite. With a newfound sense of peace, I cast my fishing line into the water, hoping for a stroke of luck. To my astonishment, my luck did change. A little catfish, lured by the scent of my grits, became my first ever catch. Filled with excitement, I snapped a photo of the fish and sent it to my friends, proud of my accomplishment. Feeling a surge of fortune, I released the catfish back into the water and ventured further down the river, hoping to catch another fish. After hiking about a quarter mile and casting off near some rapids, I successfully caught a baby smallmouth bass. It seemed that everyone was catching smaller fish due to the shallow water. After releasing the smallmouth bass, I decided to take a moment of rest. I perched on a rock amidst the gentle rapids, allowing the scenery to captivate me. However, as I basked in the serenity of the surroundings and let my guard down, a sudden chill ran down my spine. The hairs on the back of my neck stood on end, alerting me to a presence that sent a shiver through my entire body. Instinctively, I stood up, scanning the area for any signs of movement. To my dismay, I didn't spot anything unusual, but when I glanced down at myself, I made a chilling discovery. My legs and groin were covered in dozens of tiny leeches. Panic coursed through my veins as I frantically picked them off, one by one. It was a disturbing sight, and I couldn't help but feel a growing unease about my safety in this unfamiliar territory. Feeling shaken but determined to return to the safety of our campsite, I hastily made my way back. In my haste, I misjudged my landing and landed my bare right foot on a small cypress knee, resulting in a painful bruise. The incident served as a stark reminder that I had ventured too far from my comfort zone and needed to exercise greater caution. Upon my return to the camp, I couldn't shake off the sense of vulnerability that had enveloped me. Worried about lingering leeches, I decided to strip down completely and use the only mirror we had at camp to inspect myself more thoroughly. It was a humbling experience, examining my own body for any remnants of those parasitic creatures. Once satisfied that I was leech-free, I dressed and settled into my hammock with a cold beer and a cigarette, eagerly awaiting the return of my friends. After what felt like an eternity, my friends finally arrived back at the campsite. Eagerly, we shared our separate experiences, recounting the adventures we had embarked on. However, our joyous reunion was short-lived as they relayed an encounter that had taken place in my absence. They spoke of a man named Bo, who had appeared in the river near our campsite. Dressed like a true mountain man, he carried himself with an air of authority, claiming ownership of the entire mountainous region. In an oddly gracious manner, he had allowed us to stay with his permission as long as we remained respectful of his domain. My heart sank as my friends revealed that Bo had specifically mentioned seeing me in the river earlier and had intended to approach me before I hurriedly retreated. It became clear that he had been watching us, perhaps even observing me in my vulnerable state. The whole atmosphere of his arrival seemed suspicious and sent a wave of discomfort through our group. Bo's demeanor was unsettling, his speech almost unintelligible due to his lack of teeth. He seemed delusional, unpredictable, and undoubtedly armed. My friends had been on edge, sensing his slow, cautious approach toward our camp until the rest of us returned and he backed off. It was a red flag that suggested he might not have had the best intentions in mind. Eventually, through careful negotiation and persuasion, we managed to convince Bo to leave our campsite. However, the unease lingered within us. We couldn't shake the feeling that he might still be lurking in the mountains, watching our every move. From that point on, we implemented a strict night watch schedule, taking turns to keep guard, ensuring our safety in case Bo decided to return. Fortunately, Bo never reappeared during our remaining time in the wilderness. However, the haunting shrieks of owls that pierced the night air served as a constant reminder of the eerie encounter we had faced. Each screech seemed to send chills down our spines, a chilling symphony that echoed through the vast, isolated landscape. As we packed up our camp and prepared to leave, a mixture of relief and caution consumed us. We exchanged glances, silently acknowledging that our encounter with Bo had been a stark reminder of the potential dangers that lurked in the untamed wilderness. It was a humbling experience that taught us the importance of vigilance and preparedness, even in seemingly serene surroundings. With our belongings stowed away and the campsite left pristine, we bid farewell to the secluded haven that had both enchanted and unsettled us, as we embarked on the journey back to civilization. We couldn't help but reflect on the series of events that had unfolded during our ill-fated camping trip. The incident with Bo served as a sobering reminder that nature, while captivating, could also conceal hidden threats. We vowed to carry the lessons learned from this encounter into our future adventures, always prioritizing safety and sticking together as a team. The buddy system that we had learned in our scouting days would never be forgotten again. Months passed, and the memory of that eerie encounter began to fade into the background of our lives. We resumed our routines, balancing work, socializing, and occasional outdoor excursions. But there was always a lingering sense of caution and newfound respect for the unpredictable nature of the wilderness. As time went on, we shared our story with others, cautioning them about the importance of being aware of their surroundings and staying prepared for the unexpected. Our experience became a cautionary tale, reminding others that venturing into the great outdoors required both a sense of adventure and a healthy dose of caution. The woods no longer held the same innocence for us. While we continued to seek solace in nature's embrace, we did so with a newfound wariness, understanding that beneath its beauty lay a world of untamed mystery and potential dangers. Our encounter with Bo had left an indelible mark on our lives, the reminder that even in the tranquil depths of the wilderness, there existed a delicate balance between serenity and peril. We had emerged from that experience with a deeper appreciation for the importance of unity, vigilance, and respect for the natural world. And so, armed with the lessons learned from that harrowing encounter, we continued to explore, forever mindful of the untamed mysteries that awaited us in the heart of the woods. Each step forward was accompanied by a mix of excitement and caution, knowing that the second time we encountered a person unexpectedly in the woods could have gone much worse, but it had also served as a catalyst for our growth and understanding of the untamed world around us. Story 3. I had taken a break from camping for a couple of years, but recently I decided it was time for my first trip in a while. This time, there were 4 of us going, including some friends who had accompanied me on previous camping adventures. One of my friends brought along their new fiancée, adding a touch of excitement and novelty to the trip. I booked a campsite that used to be familiar to me, but during my absence, it had undergone a surprising transformation. The once familiar landscape had transformed into a lush and vibrant haven. The trees stood tall and healthy, the shrubs grew thicker, and the foliage was more colorful and abundant than ever before. It seemed that nature had taken full advantage of the temporary human absence during the lockdown, reclaiming its territory with vigor. However, to my dismay, my fellow campers were not as appreciative of this natural reclamation. In the past, we had all been on the same page about respecting the wilderness, but this time, their behavior took a different turn. Perhaps the past few years had taken a toll on them, and they sought an escape and a chance to let loose. Unfortunately, they seemed to forget the fundamental rule of being a guest in nature's domain. They snapped branches off trees, claiming they were in the way. Excessive drinking and discarding empty beer cans into the woods became the norm. They even played recklessly with fire, spreading hot coals from the fire pit across the campsite, extinguishing them just moments before they spiraled out of control. Every possible rule was broken without a second thought. I grew increasingly upset and frustrated with their behavior. I told them to stop, to cut it out, but my pleas fell on deaf ears. Instead, they handed me a beer, told me to chill, and dismissed my concerns. Trying to salvage what I could of the trip, I attempted to enjoy myself. However, as the evening wore on, my restlessness grew. Despite not being physically tired, a sense of unease settled over me, casting a shadow on my mood. While everyone else remained around the crackling fire, their voices growing louder and more obnoxious, I decided to turn in early. Inside my tent, surrounded by the distant sound of laughter and boisterous conversation, I found it difficult to relax. The time slipped away, but the noise continued, invading my thoughts and fueling my frustration. As the others finally called it a night, the forest seemed to exhale in relief as their voices ceased. I lay there, listening to the symphony of insects and rustling leaves, unable to find peace. Eventually, unable to ignore nature's call, I decided to venture outside for one last trip to relieve myself. Crawling out of my tent, I walked toward the tree line surrounding the campsite. The darkness of the woods beckoned, and my gaze wandered into its depths. Above, the crescent moon peeked through the canopy, casting eerie shadows, while ahead, the forest loomed, shrouded in mystery. Then I saw them, 2 eyes staring straight at me from the darkness. They seemed to glow, almost translucent in the moonlight. Startled, I jumped back and instinctively shielded myself, averting my gaze for a split second. When I mustered the courage to look again, the eyes had moved closer, revealing a hint of detail. To my astonishment, I recognized the figure before me. It was my friend's fiancée, or at least it appeared to be. She stood there in the open, wearing the same clothes as earlier, looking perfectly normal except for her eyes. The eyes that met mine were devoid of their usual reflective whites, replaced by an unsettling emptiness. What unnerved me further was the way she stood, as if suspended by invisible strings, her body unnaturally still. I called out her name, my voice laced with concern and confusion. "Haley, what are you doing?" I asked, hoping for a logical explanation, a simple reassurance that everything was all right. There was a brief pause, and then, to my shock, she spoke. But it wasn't her voice that reached my ears, it was my own. The words she uttered echoed my earlier question, mimicking my tone perfectly. "What are you doing?" she repeated, using my voice. A shiver ran down my spine, and a surge of fear coursed through me. I took a step back, and in response, she moved forward, mirroring my every movement with an eerie precision. I tried to squint, to discern any signs of illness or distress, desperately hoping for a rational explanation. But all I could see was a haunting resemblance to Haley, coupled with an inexplicable wrongness that sent chills down my spine. Feeling unease gnaw at my gut, I took another step backward, my eyes fixed on her, trying to make sense of the unsettling situation. It occurred to me that perhaps she was unwell, or maybe something had taken hold of her. It was a feeble hope, a way to explain the inexplicable. "Haley, it's late," I implored, my voice trembling. "You shouldn't be out of your tent like this. Are you feeling alright? Do you need help?" Once again, she responded in my voice, her words carrying an unsettling mimicry of my concern. "You shouldn't be out of your tent like this. Chill." A chill ran down my spine, and the realization began to sink in. Whatever I was facing was far beyond my comprehension or ability to handle alone. Fear coursed through my veins, urging me to seek safety within the confines of our campsite. With cautious steps, I retreated toward the tents, never taking my eyes off Haley as she continued to mirror my every movement, gliding through the air like a marionette. Arriving at my friend's tent, panic gripped me, and I urgently began rapping on the canvas, calling out for Stephen, Haley's fiancé, to wake up. "Stephen, get up. We need to help Haley. Come on, man, get your ass up." A flap unzipped, and Stephen's confused and annoyed face emerged. "What are you talking about, man?" he groaned. "Haley's fine. She's right here." Stephen pulled back the tent flap, revealing Haley still nestled in her sleeping bag, just beginning to stir from the commotion. Disbelief washed over me as I peered inside the tent, my mind struggling to reconcile the image before me with the eerie doppelganger I had encountered in the woods moments ago. "What the hell?" I muttered, dumbfounded, but I swear she was just out there. Turning around, I shined my flashlight back toward the spot where I had seen Haley, but there was nothing, no trace of her or any other presence. It was as if she had vanished into thin air. My confusion and fear intensified, but my friends, unable to comprehend the gravity of the situation, dismissed it as a hallucination born from exhaustion or imagination. Their skepticism stunned, and tensions grew during the silent car ride back home. None of them took me seriously, and I couldn't shake the lingering sense of dread that clung to me. Haunted by the encounter and the unanswered questions it raised, I embarked on a quest for answers. Determined to make sense of the inexplicable, I delved into extensive research, scouring books, online forums, and local legends, hoping to uncover any similar accounts or clues that could shed light on what had transpired in those dark woods. As I immersed myself in the world of folklore and paranormal phenomena, I stumbled upon stories amidst that echoed fragments of my own experience. Tales of doppelgangers, shapeshifters, and otherworldly entities crossed my path, painting a picture of a hidden realm intertwined with our own. One particular legend caught my attention, a tale passed down by the indigenous people who once inhabited these lands. It spoke of a malevolent spirit known as the forest mimic, a deceptive entity that preyed on unsuspecting travelers. It was said to have the ability to mimic human forms, assuming their appearance and voices with chilling accuracy. The purpose of its mimicry remained unknown, but encounters with this creature were believed to be harbingers of misfortune and tragedy. The more I delved into this legend, the more it resonated with my encounter. The bone-chilling gaze, the mimicry of my voice, everything aligned with the traits ascribed to the forest mimic. Could it be that this ancient spirit had crossed paths with me and my friends during our ill-fated camping trip? Armed with newfound knowledge and a burning desire for answers, I reached out to local experts in folklore and the occult. I sought their guidance and shared the details of my experience, hoping to find someone who could validate my account and provide further insights. To my surprise, I received responses from a few individuals who acknowledged the existence of such entities and the potential dangers they posed. They warned me of the forest mimic's elusive nature and its uncanny ability to manipulate and deceive. Their advice was unanimous. Avoidance was key. To engage with such entities was to invite peril, as their motives and intentions remained enigmatic. Haunted by the encounter and plagued by a sense of guilt for bringing my friends into harm's way, I made the difficult decision to distance myself from them. The bond that once united us now seemed frayed and irreparable. Their skepticism and refusal to acknowledge the danger we had faced only fueled my determination to protect them from the lurking malevolence of the forest mimic. In the months that followed, I dedicated myself to spreading awareness about the ancient legends and warning others of the hidden dangers that awaited within the depths of the wilderness. I conducted interviews, wrote articles, and gave presentations, hoping to prevent anyone else from falling victim to the same fate. As time passed, my efforts bore fruit as more people came forward with their own encounters and shared their stories. Together, we formed a network of individuals who had glimpsed the eerie nature of the forest mimic and other supernatural beings that dwelt in the shadowy corners of the natural world. Though my fascination with camping had waned, my newfound purpose propelled me forward. I became a voice for those who had encountered the inexplicable, shedding light on the mysteries that lay hidden in the depths of the woods. In the process, I found solace in knowing that my experience had not been in vain, that my journey had transformed into something greater, a mission to protect others and uncover the truth. And so, I continue my crusade, a vigilant guardian against the unknown, forever seeking answers and safeguarding those who venture into the wilderness, never forgetting the unsettling gaze of those deadly white eyes that forever haunt my memories.